everyone, I'm Rebecca and welcome to MsMojo. Not everyone is lucky enough to have a detailed family history available to them, but it's human nature that we should all be curious about where we came from. Finding Your Roots with Henry Louis Gates Jr. is a genealogy show that not only lets us see what's possible in terms of ancestral research, it also shows the fascinating histories of some of our favorite celebrities, for better or worse. Let's start by looking at 10 of the most dramatic moments on Finding Your Roots.
Your family tree drips with drama.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's where I inherited, wanted to be, you know.
Welcome to MsMojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the most intense, drama-filled reactions and reveals on PBS's Finding Your Roots.
I'm not overacting. I'm not. Yeah, I'm at a loss for words.
Number 10, Viola Davis.
We like stories that are going to elevate us.
Right.
You know, we're not so good with messy truth.
No.
And this is a messy truth.
On Finding Your Roots, award-winning actress Viola Davis learned the messy truth of her maternal lineage. While researching documents about Davis's grandfather, Henry Logan, they found a discrepancy that revealed a long-held secret. In the early 1940s, Gable Logan was listed as Henry's father on his Social Security application. However, after Henry passed away in 1979, his obituary stated he was the son of a man named John Young.
Did your mom ever talk about this?
Never.
Isn't that interesting? That silence?
Silence is always interesting to me.
According to DNA analysis, Henry's biological father was indeed Young, a nearby neighbor of Corinne in South Carolina. Davis didn't appear too shocked by the inference that her grandfather was born from an extramarital affair. However, she had some very poignant words of wisdom about ancestry.
It makes me know that I entered this world with a big old load. From the moment I came out of my mother's womb.
Right.
I'm the amalgamation of a lot of stories and a lot of secrets.
Number 9, Pamela Adlon. In 2022, actress, writer, and director Pamela Adlon appeared on Finding Your Roots to solve a decades-long family mystery about her mom, Marina.
I want to know, and I don't want to disrespect my lineage, but I'm so curious.
It was always rumored that Marina wasn't the biological daughter of Leonard Lease, the only father she'd ever known. Researching Adlon's genealogy was a multiple-year process, but DNA results were finally able to determine that the rumor was true. Marina's birth father was actually a man named Joseph Walthew.
Wow. I'm so happy that I get to give this
too.
to my mom.
Adlon's grandmother Phyllis was already married to Leonard when Marina was conceived. Researchers also discovered she had a half-sister named Gloria, Walthew's other daughter. The truth may be scandalous, but in the end, it brought families together.
Your mother's got a sister, and she's alive and well, and she's 83 years old.
My mother's gonna be so happy.
Number 8, RuPaul. In season 6, host Henry Louis Gates Jr. tells RuPaul Charles the compelling story of his maternal great-great-great-grandmother Julie, who was owned by a man named Jacques Fontenette. Interestingly, he freed her 2 children, Nanette and Andre, but kept Julie herself enslaved. RuPaul and Gates speculate on the reason for this act of compassion, theorizing that he could have been their father.
Love?
Love would be the number one thing that would someone would grant someone their freedom like this.
But he didn't love Julie enough to free her too.
Right. Yeah.
Researchers discovered a record of manumission from 1818 stating that Andre bought his mother from Fontenette. After his tragic death, Nanette succeeded in freeing her, roughly 14 years after she and Andre were granted manumission.
Very easily, people could fade away.
It's too much.
Too much.
Too much.
And he didn't quite get to the finish line, but his sister
But his sister did.
picked it up.
Yeah, and he made sure of that.
RuPaul can relate to the siblings' determination and tearfully recalls how he felt caring for his own mother before she passed away.
I've done a lot of things in life. That turnaround of helping my mother like that has to be the most incredible thing I've ever done.
Number 7. LL Cool J.
That's heavy. I mean, you know, you couldn't have told me in 1,000 years, in 1,000,000 years, that this was the case in my life.
The early life of James Todd Smith, also known as LL Cool J, was scarred by his violent father. After the couple separated, LL and his mother, Andrea Griffith, went to live with her parents, Eugene Griffith and Ellen Hightower. But Finding Your Roots made a life-changing discovery. The Griffiths were not LL's biological grandparents.
It's a little devastating to know that, you know, that guy that raised me, that was so kind to me, wasn't my blood.
Andrea was born Andra Jolly to parents Ethel May Jolly and Nathaniel Christie Lewis, and later adopted by Eugene and Ellen. It's a lot to process, especially since she never knew she was an adoptee. However, LL still has love and respect for the people who had a hand in raising him.
I respect Eugene Griffith. I respect Ellen Hightower Griffith. They did so well for us. I have more love and respect for them than I ever did. Ever.
Number 6. Terry Crews. Like many participants in Finding Your Roots, Terry Crews goes on an emotional roller coaster, learning about the triumphs and tragedies of his ancestors.
Man, this is a movie. This is a movie.
It's true.
No, it is.
And it's your story.
This is a movie. Think about this.
The multi-hyphenate entertainer learned that he likely inherited his ambitious nature from his maternal great-great-grandfather, Edward Albert. The men also share a similar resilience, as Crews's 4 times great-grandparents, George and Fanny Newsom. George was enslaved by a planter named Hezekiah Newsom, while his wife and kids were at a nearby property. In 1858, Fanny was separated from 5 of their 7 children.
This is just in one day, one action.
Can you imagine having your family separated and the generations all, and you one day you saw your mom and the next day she was gone forever.
She's gone, man.
I can't imagine.
4 years after a partial reunion in 1861, all 9 family members were finally together again. As a father of 5, Crews felt a strong connection with his relatives and was deeply touched by their harrowing experience.
I cannot imagine any of my babies being yanked and pulled out of my arms into and taken away into someone else's household. I would never know where they went.
Number 5, LeVar Burton.
I'm ecstatic.
Yeah.
I can't even explain how it feels to get this information. It's like there have been pieces of me that have been missing.
After his breakout role in the 1977 miniseries Roots, LeVar Burton was the host and executive producer of PBS's beloved educational series Reading Rainbow, which ran from 1983 to 2006. He's long been an advocate for literacy and always attributed it to his mother, Irma Jean Christian, a school teacher. But on Finding Your Roots, he discovered that his paternal relatives were also passionate about education.
You come from educators on both sides.
That's very cool. I'm very proud of that.
Estranged from his father since he was 11, Burton had no idea that his grandfather and great-grandfather both worked as school superintendents, and the latter was instrumental in founding and running a school in Osceola, Arkansas for African-American children. LeVar Burton was amazed that he had this powerful connection to his father's family for all this time.
This is gonna reverberate for a while.
Hey, of course.
It's
forever.
So powerful.
Number 4, Eliza Schlesinger. Finding Your Roots helped actor-comedian Eliza Schlesinger dig into her Eastern European paternal origins. She learned that her great-grandmother, Esther Zonek, managed to make her way from Poland to New York in 1921. However, she left behind 5 siblings.
I know that feeling when your sibling's in danger and you feel helpless, especially from like an ocean away. So I can't begin to imagine this. I don't think I want to.
In September 1939, Mława, the small Polish town where Esther's brother Lipa worked, was invaded by German soldiers, and its Jewish residents were confined to a walled-in ghetto. In November 1942, Lipa, along with many others, was taken to Auschwitz concentration camp, where he died less than a year later.
The fact that there was even a doctor, because you're murdered.
Right.
Your heart didn't degenerate. Of course it degenerated because you were starved and
Sure, of course.
you were murdered. I can't believe these monsters even wrote it down, but because they're psychotic, they wrote everything down.
Schlesinger felt proud that Esther immigrated to the United States on her own, but hearing about her close connection to the horrors of the Holocaust was a painful realization.
It was already so real. And so now it's palpable.
Number 3, Mandy Patinkin.
I worry for the world. The unthinkable happened.
On Finding Your Roots, actor Mandy Patinkin traced the ancestry of his paternal grandfather, Max, and great-uncle David Patinka, who came to America. David ultimately returned to Europe, where he, his wife, and 2 of their 5 children were killed during a robbery. In 1939, his son, Chaim, traveled to New York while Chaim's brother, Lazar, remained in the northeastern Polish town of Bronsk, where the Germans confined them to a ghetto in 1941.
Lazar would have been about 29 years old. His wife, Bluma, would have been about 25, and their son, David, would have just been a few months old. They had relatives in America, but now they were trapped.
On November 2nd, 1942, over 2,000 Jewish residents, including Lazar and his family, were sent to the Treblinka concentration camp. Just days later, they died in gas chambers, and their bodies were disposed of in a crematorium. Just like Eliza Schlesinger, hearing what his relatives endured in the Holocaust was heart-wrenching and overwhelming for Patinkin.
I was never given this information. This is... I don't have words. That's unbelievable. Almighty. That's unreal.
Number 2, Pharrell Williams.
I don't want to cry, and I'm trying not to be angry.
You're not a machine. This is horrendous. What else can you feel? It's horrible.
It's intense, sir. It's intense.
Learning about the hardships and atrocities your ancestors faced is never easy. On Finding Your Roots, Pharrell Williams had the opportunity to read a first-hand account written by his great-great-great-aunt, Jane Arrington, who was enslaved on a cotton plantation.
Sometimes I swept the yards after working all day. There was a task of cotton to be picked and spun by them. What kind of people?
As a part of the Slave Narratives project of the 1930s, Arrington detailed the indignities her family suffered day to day. Reading her words and envisioning the painful reality of their lives had a visible effect on Williams. Despite the emotional experience, he was grateful to gain this intimate knowledge of his ancestors.
And I thank God that I got to hear it. But I'm so sorry they went through this.
Oh, nobody should have gone through this.
It's a lot, man.
Oh,
I have to say I'm forever changed.
Before we unveil our top pick, here are a few honorable mentions. Issa Rae. The actress-producer discovered some relationships were a bit complicated.
Your 4th great grandfather was a white man.
This is so... It's like you just took me through a soap opera, like a slave soap opera.
John Lewis. Civil rights activism runs in the family.
So maybe, just maybe, it's part of my DNA, my bloodline, or whatever you want to call it.
Larry David. The comedian learns his mother's real name.
I cannot believe that I didn't know her real name. That's astounding.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
Fred Armisen. The SNL alum can't believe his true identity.
You understand that I tell people that I have interviews, right, where I say I am a quarter Japanese.
Because you thought you were quarter Japanese, but genetically you're quarter Korean.
Why hasn't anyone told me this?
Questlove. The Roots drummer's ancestors came to the US on the last known slave ship.
Until an hour ago, I didn't know who I was. I said I wasn't gonna cry, man.
Number 1, Joe Manganiello.
I feel like a time traveler. This is something out of some science fiction novel. that I gave a small part of me, ran it through this computer, and it said, step in.
For some shocking discoveries, host Henry Louis Gates Jr. respectfully informs the guest off camera prior to proceeding with the episode, which was the case with actor Joe Manganiello. He learned the mind-blowing truth that DNA showed he wasn't biologically related to his paternal grandfather. Instead, his father's father was a light-skinned African-American man with the last name Cutler.
That means, Joe Cutler, that you would, under the one drop rule, be an African American.
Boy, now that's really interesting.
Manganiello knew the harrowing story of his maternal great-grandmother, Terviz Rose Durakjan, an Armenian genocide survivor who had a half-German daughter, Sandra, his grandmother. The show revealed her father to be a soldier named Karl Wilhelm Beutinger, whose son went on to join the Nazis' SS. Learning this wealth of information had such a profound impact on Manganiello that he continued tracing his genealogy after the show.
For me to be sitting here today, it's like threading a needle with a bow and arrow at 100 yards.
It's true.
3 times.
It's true. It is true.
It's impossible.
Which of these moments did you find the most dramatic?
My job is to imagine.
Right.
That is my profession.
Right.
I have never been able to get a hold of that.
You know you're in for a doozy of a bombshell when Henry Louis Gates has to break something to you off camera. What an emotional roller coaster this show is. But if you think all moments are heavy, think again, because there are definitely some more lighthearted revelations. Let's take a look at 10 of the funniest moments on Finding Your Roots.
Unmarried, illiterate. Wow, what a catch.
Welcome to MsMojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the most unexpectedly hilarious revelations and comments made on the genealogy documentary series Finding Your Roots.
Wanna guess what?
I want to know what did
William
he do?
did.
What did he do? What did he do?
Number 10, Terry Gross. Since 1975, Terry Gross has held down one gig, hosting the NPR radio show Fresh Air.
I fell in love with radio the moment I started doing it. It had everything I wanted. I was probably like 23 when I started.
For someone who's nailed job security for decades, it was surprising to learn that one of her earliest positions was so brief. It was practically an internship. While discussing with host Henry Louis Gates Jr., Gross revealed that soon after graduating college, she landed a job teaching 8th grade at a public school in Buffalo, New York. But that didn't last long.
Got my BA in English with a teaching certificate. I was fired in 6 weeks.
Her brief tenure was a result of her inability to keep a class in line. Perhaps if she had tried her famous interview voice on those kids, they would have straightened up.
When you have the microphone and you're doing it for a cause, for your audience to learn something, it gives you the license to ask things you otherwise wouldn't ask. And so as a kind of shy person, it kind of opened up the doors to put the shyness aside.
Number 9, Richard Kind.
Just how many rabbis were there? Was everybody a rabbi?
No.
Or they were
No,
not?
being a rabbi was very special.
Was special.
When he appeared on Finding Your Roots in 2023, actor Richard Kind uncovered some wild surprises, like learning one of his ancestors was murdered, supposedly over an insurance policy. He also discovered that many of his forebears were Jewish religious leaders who were responsible for educating their community. Naturally, this revelation left Kind feeling just a little smarter than when he first arrived. A feeling he humorously compared to a scene from The Wizard of Oz.
It's like the Wizard of Oz giving the Tin Man a diploma. Oh, look at who's so smart.
Although he did mix up one small detail. It was the Scarecrow who got the diploma, not the Tin Man. But hey, who are we to argue with a doctor of thinkology?
Wow. You were the most literate. You welcomed people into the world, and you
And it
ushered
passed
them
it
out.
out. And it passed it on.
Number 8, Audra McDonald. The hardships enslaved people endured during slavery are beyond anything we can imagine today.
Have you thought much about your enslaved ancestors, what they must have gone through, what that must have been like?
Always. Just the resilience that they had to have had.
In a 2021 episode of the show, Broadway icon Audra McDonald got the opportunity to reflect on her ancestors' harrowing experiences, and admits that she wouldn't have survived what they went through. While the moment is emotionally heavy, host Henry Louis Gates Jr. lightened the mood with a quip.
I tell myself, I would have flung slavery.
Got just a big
it's
old
too
head.
hard.
This got a big laugh out of McDonald, who jokingly replied with the grade such a brutal ordeal would have deserved. Still, her ancestors' resilience in the face of such atrocities left her feeling deeply inspired.
Look what they did. Look at what they achieved. Sorry, that's what I think. Good for them.
Number 7, Ava DuVernay. As a filmmaker, Ava DuVernay has always explored themes of race, faith, and family in her work. In 2017, she took things a step further by going on Finding Your Roots to trace her own family history.
I think that we live in times that are very much defined by race. I think that we won't see change to that in our generation or even the generation right behind us. And so for me, to be African American is very much part of my heartbeat.
To her surprise, she discovered that her 4th great-grandfather was a white man born to slave owners in present-day Haiti. Henry Louis Gates Jr. couldn't resist pointing out the ironic twist between her films and her ancestry.
Okay.
There you go.
Gotcha.
That's right. The queen of black documentary film.
You knew it was gonna be in there somewhere.
Yeah.
I knew it was coming.
Most of us know it's there somewhere, but we know where in your case.
This revelation made DuVernay eager to dig deeper into her roots, so she took a DNA test, which showed that she was 57% African. Learning this brought her so much excitement, it left Gates laughing out loud.
I'm black. I am black.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back.
Number 6, Bill Hader. Discovering our family history often reveals surprising similarities with our ancestors, but sometimes it can also unearth some stark differences, like comedian Bill Hader found out.
Bill, rather than run away from
They
the
ran
front,
to
they
it.
ran
Okay,
to
so
the
never
front.
mind. He's not like me at all. I thought he was like, then AWOL. I was like, there you go.
While Hader is rather soft-spoken and very demure, his great-grandfather Arthur was anything but. The comedian learned that during World War I, Arthur didn't wait to be drafted. He voluntarily enlisted to fight, something Hader openly admits he would never do.
Can you, in your wildest dreams, see yourself doing what he did?
No. No. He was a man. So I'm a descendant of an actual, man.
To top it off, after being stationed far from the action, Arthur longed for combat and actually ran away to join the battlefield. Although Hader had nothing but respect for his ancestors' bravery, he was quick to acknowledge that he probably would have done the exact opposite.
He's the man. I can't believe I'm related to him. I'm afraid to get on the freeway in LA.
Number 5, Seth Meyers. A name says a lot about a person. It's like a bridge to the past, keeping the legacy of our ancestors alive.
It's funny to think of how, I don't know, how much weight names have on people's outcomes. Because that's a lot of a name there.
For comedian Seth Meyers, digging into his family history uncovered a surprising twist about the name he's carried all his life. It turns out that his great-grandfather, Morris, who immigrated to America from Lithuania at the age of 15, changed his surname likely to fit in better.
Trakiansky is the last name?
You have just met your great-great-grandfather, and you have just retrieved your original family name.
This means that there is an alternate universe out there where Seth Meyers is known by everyone as Seth Trakiansky. Admittedly, this name change would have given his late-night talk show a very different vibe.
Late night with Seth Trakiansky.
Yeah, I can see it now.
Yeah.
Number 4, Laura Linney. While some celebrities have uncovered tales of their heroic ancestors on this show, Laura Linney can't quite boast the same.
Get ready for this.
In a 2019 episode, Linny found out that her 5th great-grandfather, William, didn't exactly move to the US to chase the American dream. Instead, he was convicted of receiving stolen goods and shipped to Virginia in 1768, back when the British liked to transport its convicts to colonial America.
Felons transported from London to Virginia by the Neptune in January 1768.
He is banished from England. He is being sent into exile.
Linny greeted this revelation with such giddy excitement, bursting into laughter at her ancestors' misfortune. After all, there are worse crimes than being caught with a bunch of stolen iron hoops for pails, right?
The justice said, "Mr. Linny, you hear what the lad has said. Have you anything to say?" Linny said, "No, I own I had the goods."
I own I had the goods.
So he fessed up.
Number 3, Paul Rudd. On Finding Your Roots, actor Paul Rudd discovered that his parents were connected in a way far deeper than he ever could have expected. They weren't just married, they were also related by blood.
How did they meet and fall in love?
Well, I think that they knew each other as they were kids because somewhere in the family tree, as you will probably tell me, they were related.
Yep, Rudd's parents, Michael and Gloria, were second cousins, meaning that they shared the same great-grandparents. Upon learning this, Rudd couldn't help but throw in a joke about inbreeding, and even wondered if that made his son his uncle.
Which, of course, explains why I have 6 nipples.
Yeah, absolutely.
While this connection likely made family gatherings a bit more, well, interesting, at least his parents had a great response whenever someone asked, "So how did you two meet?"
It's illegal now, right?
It's legal, but it's unusual.
Number 2, Nathan Lane. According to host Henry Louis Gates Jr., it's quite challenging to trace Irish ancestry due to the scarcity of surviving historical records.
They were assisting them out. They were showing them the door.
Oh, and it's just a nice way of saying it.
However, the show managed to unearth a gem, a document that transported actor Nathan Lane, who is of Irish descent, back to a key moment in his family's history.
Well, this is very exciting. It makes me want to have a party. A family gathering.
It was a marriage record from the 1835 wedding of his great-great-grandparents. The document not only named Lane's ancestors, but also listed 2 male witnesses, whom the actor hilariously remarked upon.
Timothy and Peter Sullivan. They're gay neighbors. They had a lot of brunches. A lot of brunches in Clonmore.
Of course, those 1835 brunches were undoubtedly much better than today's. Number 1, Jimmy Kimmel.
Take a wild guess on about who that might be.
I'm hoping it's not Hitler.
No, it's got to be somebody we've done in the series.
Oh, okay. Oh, you guys have not done Hitler? He's not been by the show?
No.
Many celebrities have discovered surprising family ties to other stars through Finding Your Roots. So many, in fact, we actually made a separate list about that. But perhaps the most hilarious reaction came from comedian Jimmy Kimmel, who learned he is distant cousins with none other than the queen of all things domestic, Martha Stewart.
You gotta be kidding me. This, by the way, this explains me. That's unbelievable.
Kimmel found the revelation both shocking and oddly fitting, since, like Stewart, he also taps into the DIY lifestyle by making his own vinegar. But he even admits that the news may not be as thrilling for Stewart as it is for him. Either way, we can't wait for the inevitable cook-off between these long-lost cousins.
Pumpkin pie is my favorite thing. Oh, wow. Yes, 100%.
I agree with you.
I need somebody to turn me out and de-virginize me with a pumpkin pie.
I would love to do that for you, Snoop.
Have you made any unexpectedly hilarious revelations in your ancestral line?
Well, ain't there a skeleton in my closet, huh? Wow, I can hear him jingling.
Oh man, one of my favorite parts of these shows is when they find out that a celebrity is distantly related to another celebrity. But sadly, not all the information people are given on the show is funny or even positive. Here are 20 of the darkest family reveals on Finding Your Roots.
We were able to restore them, tracing her roots back 12 generations to the mid-1500s.
Welcome to MsMojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the most disturbing revelations celebrities uncovered about their ancestry on Finding Your Roots.
I've always heard such terrible stories about him. I really have. And I didn't know any of this. I had no idea he served time.
Number 20, Alanis Morissette. Canadian rock artist Alanis Morissette didn't learn about her Jewish ancestry until she was in her late 20s.
Why do you think that no one told you?
I think there was a terror that is in their bones, and they were being protective of us and just not wanting anti-Semitism, and so they were doing it to protect us.
On Finding Your Roots, she uncovered even more details about that side of her family, particularly the fate of her great-uncles, Georgie and Sandor Fierstein. Both men disappeared during the Holocaust, leaving their family with no answers.
Can you imagine what that was like for your grandfather, carrying that burden?
Not knowing where your sibling is, if they're alive or dead.
Yeah. Having no closure, no finality.
No. God.
However, using records at Yad Vashem, the World Holocaust Remembrance Center, the show's team dug up those answers. They discovered that the brothers had been sent to work camps in Russia, where they tragically lost their lives. Morissette found this especially heartbreaking, as her grandfather, who escaped the same fate as his brothers and moved to Canada, passed away without ever knowing what happened to them.
I mean, it's one thing to have a family rumor that they disappeared, but now we know why they disappeared.
Yeah, no, my mother and my grandmother, we didn't get into this.
Number 19, Jordan Peele.
I mean, you got to think that, knowing that this could happen, you go your entire life, or your child's entire life, fearing this day.
One often overlooked consequence of the slave trade was the separation of families. Fathers never seeing their kids again, young children forced to grow up on their own. That unfortunate fate befell filmmaker Jordan Peele's great-great-grandmother, Alvania. In 1860, when she was just 12 years old, Alvania was taken away from her parents and brother and sold into slavery for $1,250.
It's crazy, and you wonder what that does to the psychology of a family.
While reflecting on what effects such an experience could have on the psyche of Alvania and her family, Peele felt a mix of pain and pride. He recognized the psychological trauma they must have endured as a result, and how that may have been passed down through generations.
And I wonder if there's some kind of deep-seated connection and the idea of you can be a family even if you're apart.
Number 18, Lisa Ling.
We found a very different kind of story. A story not of family secrets, but rather of a family in terrible danger.
In December 1941, during World War II, Japan invaded Hong Kong, beginning a nearly 4-year military occupation that led to widespread starvation and countless deaths. To escape the famine and brutality of Japanese rule, many residents fled on foot to China. One of them was journalist Lisa Ling's grandmother, who wrote a book about her harrowing experience making that journey.
We had already marched 3 days, putting in about 15 miles each day. My shoes were in terrible condition, with the soles worn through. Broken blisters on my feet caused much pain and discomfort. After each rest, I had to clench my teeth in order to hoist myself up from the bench to start walking again.
Ling had actually read the book years earlier, but seeing it again on the show, she was able to re-examine it with a more mature perspective. She was clearly struck by the immense resilience and strength her grandmother showed in embarking on that journey while carrying her family on her back, literally.
I had no idea that they went into China. I had no idea. I can't even imagine how she was able to do it.
Number 17, Justina Machado.
Justina, this is a court record we located in the General Archives in Puerto Rico. It concerns a prison sentence handed down on May 9, 1939.
The freedoms enjoyed by queer people in some parts of the world today are the result of long, hard-fought battles. Few things highlight the significance of these struggles as clearly as cases like this. On season 6 of Finding Your Roots, actress Justina Machado discovered a surprising part of her grandfather's past.
The people of Puerto Rico versus Ismael Figueroa Machado and Francisco Perez Luciano. Crime against nature.
In his youth, he was sent to the Rio Piedras State Penitentiary, one of the most notorious Caribbean prisons, for having sexual relations with another man. At the time, this was considered a crime in the eyes of the law, one that attracted even more prison time for her grandfather while he was already incarcerated.
I mean, He didn't have Bendito.
Didn't have a chance.
No, it's so sad. I mean, you know, yeah.
Number 16, Wes Studi. Between 1830 and 1850, the US government forcibly displaced around 60,000 indigenous Americans from their ancestral homelands in what became known as the Trail of Tears.
And I know it's got to be painful.
Well, we've lived with that pain for a long time.
This ethnic cleansing left scars that have impacted generations of Native Americans, including actor Wes Studi. When he appeared on Finding Your Roots in 2024, Studi learned of his maternal third great-grandmother, Big Nancy, who was among those forced to leave their home in Georgia and suffer a grueling journey to Oklahoma.
I've been to some of the places that she passed through. I've been to many of these places, seen them.
Years after the harrowing ordeal, Nancy filed a claim for compensation, seeking $187 for the properties white settlers had taken from her. Studi reflected on the deep pain this history carries, acknowledging the lasting effects it has had on his people.
Well, it pisses me off. It always has, but this is it's more succinct. Now I know where it was.
Yeah.
And I wonder if the people are still there who took over her place.
Number 15, Jeff Daniels. During the Salem witch trials of 1692, one of the few men convicted of witchcraft and executed was Samuel Wardwell.
Samuel Wardwell saith that at that time when the devil appeared and told him he was a prince of the air, that then he signed his book by making a mark like a square with a black pen.
Wardwell was a self-professed fortune teller whose practices apparently drew suspicions of the occult among the locals and led to his conviction. One of the people who testified against him was Captain Thomas Chandler, the 8th great-grandfather of actor Jeff Daniels.
Now, according to scholars with whom we spoke, your ancestors' testimony in this trial is fairly mild. But this was not his only involvement in the affair.
Daniels learned this unsettling fact on Finding Your Roots, where he also discovered that Chandler testified against another accused witch, Mary Parker. Unlike Wardwell, Parker was Chandler's neighbor and peer, yet he believed she was using sorcery on his daughter and granddaughter, which prompted his testimony.
I would like to think that it wasn't just something he did to enjoy, that it was something that he actually believed in, but that doesn't make it a bit better.
Number 14, Eliza Schlesinger.
When you look at pictures from history of atrocities committed against your people in particular, there's always that pull. But I never thought I had any actual connection because I didn't know any of the history.
It was abstract.
Yes.
Although she had always been aware of her Jewish heritage, comedian Eliza Schlesinger never knew she had a direct link to the Holocaust until she appeared on Finding Your Roots in 2024. In the episode, Schlesinger learned that while her great-grandmother immigrated to the US from Poland before the Holocaust, she left behind at least 2 brothers. One of them, Lipa, was a textile dealer who was forced into a ghetto in Mława after the Nazis invaded.
I know that feeling when your sibling's in danger and you feel helpless, especially from like an ocean away. So I can't begin to imagine this. I don't think I want to.
He was later sent to Auschwitz, where he tragically lost his life. The revelation brought Schlesinger to tears as she confronted both the atrocities that her ancestor endured, as well as her newfound connection to the Holocaust.
It was already so real. And so now it's palpable.
Number 13, Sigourney Weaver. Award-winning actress Sigourney Weaver came to Finding Your Roots hoping to uncover a juicy scandal in her ancestral line. What she found, however, was far darker than she expected.
I see.
But where's Barbara? Where's Josiah's wife? Your great-great-grandmother?
I don't know. Did she die?
Well, remember, it said that he's married. So if she had died, he would be a widower.
But she's just not there.
Using census records from 1871, the show's researchers discovered that Weaver's great-great-grandparents, Josiah and Barbara Hunt, were living apart, despite having a child together. Barbara had moved in with another man, whom Josiah accused her of having an affair with.
After the separation, Mrs. Hunt went to reside at Reading with the correspondent, ostensibly as his housekeeper, but from the general tenor of her behavior, there was but little doubt that their intimacy was of a more familiar nature.
She became pregnant by this man, but suffered a miscarriage, after which she was institutionalized in a psychiatric facility, where she remained for the rest of her life. Perhaps inspired by this ordeal, Barbara's son, Weaver's great-grandfather, later became a doctor in another psychiatric facility, where patients were treated much more humanely.
And get an inkling of what it was based on emotionally is so moving. You know, even though what happened to her was tragic, he somehow made good come out of it.
Number 12, Scarlett Johansson.
I cannot imagine what you must be feeling. Just hell must have been hell.
It's one thing to hear about your ancestors suffering a tragic fate, but it's an entirely different experience to see the details of their deaths written down. That can bring tears to even the driest eyes. Such was the case for actress Scarlett Johansson, who, in this 2017 episode, discovered the fate of her great-uncle Moisha and his family, who lived in Grojec, Poland, when World War II began.
And I promised myself I wouldn't cry.
No.
But it's hard not to.
It's hard not to.
Moisha and his family were rounded up and taken to the infamous Warsaw Ghetto. There, he and at least 2 of his 10 children were killed. Johansson couldn't help but fight back tears, though she was grateful to learn more about her family history, as it deepened her connection to her roots.
The fate of one brother versus the other.
Yep.
It makes me feel more deeply connected to that side of myself, that side of my family. I didn't expect that.
Number 11, LL Cool J. Some genetic discoveries are so sensitive that they need to be shared privately first before being revealed on camera. This was the case with LL Cool J.
It's a little devastating to know that, that guy that raised me, that was so kind to me, wasn't my blood.
For most of his childhood, the rapper was raised by the people he believed to be his maternal grandparents. Even his mother, Andrea Griffith, thought they were her biological parents. However, a DNA test on Finding Your Roots revealed otherwise.
We compared Andrea's DNA to that of her Griffith cousin. If they truly are first cousins, they should share about 12.5% of their DNA, which we would see in red here.
But we see nothing.
Right, we don't see any red.
In reality, Griffith was adopted as an infant, and her adoptive parents, Eugene Griffith and Ellen Hightower, never made that information known to her throughout their lives. Regardless, the revelation didn't change LL Cool J's perception of his adoptive grandparents. If anything, it deepened his love and respect for them.
They did so well for us. I have more love and respect for them than I ever did.
Number 10, Rosanne Cash. In 2021, Rosanne Cash, the daughter of country music icon Johnny Cash, appeared on Finding Your Roots, where she made a particularly interesting discovery.
Would you like to meet your DNA cousin?
Yes.
Okay, please turn the page.
Back in 1965, Cash's mother Vivian was targeted by the KKK in a racist campaign. The white supremacist group believed Vivian was black, thus alleging her marriage to Johnny was illegal.
She filed for divorce as kind of an ultimatum and wishful thinking, and thinking that maybe if he sees I'm serious, he'll come back.
The controversy only died down after the country singer issued a public statement insisting his wife was white. However, on Finding Your Roots, Cash discovered that her mother indeed had African-American heritage.
Really? Yep.
Vivian's maternal great-great-grandmother was a mixed-race woman named Sarah Shields, who was born into slavery in Alabama. Shields later married a white man and recorded all her children as white in official documents. Number 9, Joe Manganiello. Actor Joe Manganiello owes his existence today to the remarkable tenacity of his maternal great-grandmother, Terviz Rose Darakjan.
Joe's grandmother, Sandra, was born in the Ottoman Empire during World War I. Her mother, a woman named Rose Darakjan, was a survivor of the Armenian genocide.
Darakjan was an Armenian woman who was married with 8 children. In 1915, during the Armenian genocide, her husband and 7 of her children were murdered before her eyes. Dorakjan managed to escape and swam across the Euphrates River with her last surviving child strapped to her back. But tragically, the infant died during the journey.
You ready to see what we found?
Man.
She was then thrown into an internment camp where she encountered a German soldier named Karl Wilhelm Beutinger, who impregnated her. On his paternal side, Manganello also discovered that the man he believed to be his grandfather, Emilio Manganello, was not biologically related to him.
Close the door, and whoosh, I open the door, and I'm here in Germany at this time looking at my ancestor that I never knew.
Number 8, Tig Notaro. Even before Finding Your Roots, comedian Tig Notaro always knew she was the descendant of a politician.
Comedian Tig Notaro grew up knowing that she had a celebrated ancestor.
Her great-great-grandfather was John Fitzpatrick, who served as the mayor of New Orleans from 1892 to 1896. But it was on the show that Notaro first learned about her ancestors' upbringing.
Register of boys received into the asylum. Name of the boy, John Fitzpatrick. Age when received, 10 years.
At the age of 7, Fitzpatrick lost his father and was placed in an orphan asylum alongside 2 of his brothers. Surprisingly, this wasn't due to their mother's demise, but rather the limited public welfare system, which apparently left her with no choice but to entrust some of her children to an orphanage.
Can you imagine being in Catherine's position and being forced to do that?
That's something I don't think I could get through.
Fitzpatrick was later reunited with his mother and worked his way up from a newspaper boy to the mayor's office.
The only thing that I know about him is just this man in a picture. It's like, hey, he was the mayor. I don't know any of this.
Number 7, Edward Norton. While Edward Norton is widely recognized for his roles in several popular Hollywood films, it turns out he may not be the most famous individual in his family tree.
Pocahontas is indeed your 12th great-grandma.
In the season 9 premiere of Finding Your Roots, the actor learned that Pocahontas was his 12th great-grandmother, confirming a long-held family lore.
Makes you realize what a small, piece of the whole human story you are.
But perhaps the most uncomfortable detail uncovered during the episode was the revelation that Norton's 3rd great-grandfather, John Winstead, was a slave owner in North Carolina. While he wouldn't be the first celebrity to make such a discovery, Norton reflected on its disturbing nature, describing it as a, quote, uncomfortable truth that, quote, needs to be acknowledged and, quote, contended with.
It's not a judgment on you and your own life, but it's a judgment on the history of this country.
Number 6, Fred Armisen. For most of his life, Saturday Night Live alum Fred Armisen believed he was 1/4 Japanese, attributing this to his grandfather, the late Masami Kuni, who hailed from Japan. He would later discover this was all false.
So am I Korean? No.
Kuni was actually South Korean, originally named Pak Young-in, and only assumed a Japanese identity after the 1923 massacre of Koreans in Japan.
It changes the way I think about myself.
But that was just the tip of the iceberg. Armisen also learned that while Kuni lived in Germany in the 1930s and 40s, he engaged in propaganda efforts for the Nazis by entertaining German troops. Additionally, during this period, Kuni apparently also worked as a spy for Japan, gathering intelligence on Southern European and Turkish affairs.
He is one of the most clever agents they have.
Number 5, Lena Dunham. The 2024 film Treasure stars Lena Dunham as a young woman who visits Poland with her aging father and is forced to confront her family's Holocaust past. When Dunham appeared on Finding Your Roots, she discovered unexpected parallels between her own ancestry and that of her character in the movie.
Can you imagine when you were 14, your parents would put you on a boat?
No, I can't. It turns out that Dunham's great-great-grandmother Regina migrated to America as a teenager, leaving behind nearly a dozen siblings in Europe. Tragically, during World War II, one of Regina's nieces, Ilana, was separated from the rest of her family and sent to the Nazi-occupied city of Kamieniec-Podilsky in Ukraine. Ilana is believed to be one of roughly 24,000 Jews who lost their lives there.
To see a personal connection to it literalizes it in a way that is, that's very, very powerful.
Number 4, Joe Madison. Celebrities who appear on Finding Your Roots step into the unknown, unsure of what family secrets might be revealed. While many learn unsettling details about distant ancestors, veteran radio host Joe Madison was confronted with a startling truth about his own father.
It was such a shocking discovery that I felt compelled to call Joe at home before our interview to let him know in private, away from any TV cameras.
In the season 5 episode, Madison found out that Felix Madison, whom he had always believed to be his biological father, actually wasn't.
I appreciated your sincerity and concern.
Sensing the sensitivity of the information, host Henry Louis Gates Jr. first called Madison privately to share it with him, away from all the cameras.
And then the real question is, then who was?
Madison's appearance on the show also led him to the discovery that his biological grandfather was one of the subjects of the controversial Tuskegee Institute syphilis study. Number 3, Pharrell Williams. For many African Americans, having the chance to read firsthand stories of their ancestors' lives, especially those who were enslaved, is rare. Acclaimed music producer Pharrell Williams got this opportunity when he appeared on Finding Your Roots in 2021.
I was born on the 18th of December, 1852. I was born on the plantation near Tar River.
During the show, Williams was presented with an interview given by his great-great-great-aunt, Jane Arrington, who participated in the slave narrative project in the 1930s. In the interview, Arrington shared detailed accounts of her harrowing experience as an enslaved person. As he read the notes on the program, Williams was deeply moved by the hardships his ancestor was forced to endure.
Those words also forced him to confront the cruel reality of what those ancestors actually experienced.
He also uncovered the unsettling fact that his great-great-great-grandfather, Fenner Williams, spent the first decade of his life enslaved.
It's a lot, man.
Oh.
I have to say I am forever changed.
Number 2, Michael Douglas. Throughout his career, actor Michael Douglas has starred in multiple crime thrillers. Yet few of those fictional narratives can match the gripping real-life tales of his own ancestors.
Last permanent residence, Chelsea, Russia.
Chelsea, Russia. You know who that is? That's your father's uncle.
In a 2024 episode of the show, Douglas learned about his grandfather, Harry Danielovich, and his great-uncle, Moshe, both of whom migrated to the US from Chelsea in present-day Belarus. Before they left for America, both Harry and Moshe were caught up in a life of crime.
Anyone who knows the whereabouts of Danielovich is obliged to inform the court where he is.
Harry had been arrested and sent to prison for robbery, while Moshe was implicated in an armed robbery case in 1906 and declared a wanted man in Chelsea. However, it is unclear if he was ever apprehended before he left the country.
This is blowing my mind a little. This is really blowing my mind.
Number 1, Maya Rudolph. Like many other celebrities who have appeared on Finding Your Roots, Maya Rudolph aimed to uncover her identity.
1860 slave census for a man named John Warren Grigsby.
Cannot believe I'm looking at this.
The SNL alum was curious about her maternal African-American heritage and was given a glimpse into her ancestry. Through the show, Rudolph discovered her maternal great-great-great-grandfather, James Grigsby, who was born into slavery in Lincoln County, Kentucky.
That breaks my heart. Wow.
A census document from 1860 showed Grigsby listed without a name, but solely by his sex and age, 5. This discovery was deeply unsettling to Rudolph, causing her to break down in tears.
Wow. I just can't believe what I'm looking at.
She also learned of another maternal ancestor whose owner's grandson denied him the financial compensation and freedom promised in his owner's will. Fortunately, he took the grandson to court and won.
It just makes you feel like you're part of something so much bigger.
What unexpected discoveries have you made in your own ancestry?
Dad, you'll never guess where I am. I'm in our ancestral home, McLeod Castle. And there was a long pause, and he said, you know, I think we're McFarlane.
Now, we're going from dark reveals to moments that are kind of hard to categorize. Whether it's an ancestral affair, criminality in the bloodline, or some other surprise, there are many moments on Finding Your Roots that can only be described as awkward. Here are 20 of them.
God, there's so much to unpack right there. Eliza, Elizabeth.
Welcome to MsMojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the most embarrassing and uncomfortable discoveries on the genealogy series Finding Your Roots that left celebrity guests a little uneasy.
We're not so good with messy truth.
No.
And this is a messy truth.
Number 20, Nora O'Donnell's grandmother's citizenship revoked.
It says Mary Teresa Monahan, and then it says canceled.
Canceled. Do you know what that means?
Does that mean she was denied?
The grandparents of CBS News anchor Nora O'Donnell immigrated from Ireland to the US, where they met and got married. O'Donnell's grandmother, Mary Monahan, came to America at 23 and managed to build a life for herself, eventually becoming a naturalized citizen. However, Monahan's citizenship was unexpectedly revoked, not because she committed any violent crime or act of treason, but because she told a little lie.
Claiming that she was single when she was actually already married. Why did she lie?
Since her husband, O'Donnell's grandfather, was still an undocumented immigrant, Monahan lied about her marital status to protect him from being deported. Call it a white lie or a loving fib, but for O'Donnell, it was a surprising revelation that made her reevaluate how she viewed her grandmother.
It's a reminder that, you know, that we all come from somewhere. And sometimes we forget where we came from.
Number 19, Sammy Hagar or Sammy Belcher.
Sammy, genetically, you are not a Hagar.
Get out of here.
You want to find out what your real biological surname is?
Yes, this is nutty as anything I've ever imagined.
When Van Halen lead singer Sammy Hagar appeared on Finding Your Roots, he made some shocking discoveries, but none left him quite as bewildered as this one. The show's researchers unearthed an 1850 census document, which revealed that Hagar's great-great-grandmother, Elizabeth, was raising her kids alone. Oddly enough, her husband was alive and well, living in a neighboring county with his own mother.
And as far as we could tell, they never reunited. They separated and never reunited.
She raised kids by herself?
She raised kids by herself, yeah.
Wow.
So this is where the story gets wild.
To untangle this mystery, they tested Hagar's DNA and found that he shared no biological connection to the Hagar family. Instead, he was genetically linked to 27 men with the surname Belcher. Host Henry Louis Gates Jr. speculated that Elizabeth may have had an affair, which prompted her husband to leave her and move in with his mother.
This gives me so much mind-chewing ability. I mean, man, my mind's gonna work on this like a mouse on a wheel of cheese, man.
Number 18, a legal dispute in John Waters' family.
This is like a Dickens novel, and you never heard anything about it.
No.
Well, that's how the money was passed out.
Bitter family disputes are nothing new. They have occurred for centuries, plaguing both royal elites and regular folks alike. In the season 7 premiere, filmmaker John Waters learned about a conflict within his own family.
It's twisted history.
It
right?
is.
Yeah.
Your family tree drips with drama.
Yeah.
After the death of her husband, Waters' great-grandmother, Bertha Whittaker, was dragged to court by her mother-in-law, Mary. This fight was over custody of Bertha's young son, Clifford, and, as is the case with many other families, money matters. Mary argued that Bertha had an ungovernable temper and lacked the resources to raise the child. However, the court disagreed, granting Bertha custody of Clifford and even giving her a chunk of the family fortune. It's the kind of riveting twist you'd find in a John Waters film.
And thinking up drama. You know, I'm always thinking up and saying things that happen to people. Yeah. That's how I make my living.
Number 17, LeVar Burton learns of his white ancestor.
Did you have any idea you had a white direct ancestor?
No! No, I had no idea.
When you go digging into your family tree, you might not be entirely thrilled with what you find. No one knows this better than actor and TV host LeVar Burton. Burton, who rose to prominence for playing enslaved protagonist Kunta Kinte in the 1977 miniseries Roots, discovered his own roots traced back to a white farmer named James Henry Dixon. To make things even more awkward, Burton learned that Dixon had served with the Confederate Army during the American Civil War.
Are you kidding me?
That's true.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I did not see this coming.
To say that he was shocked by these revelations would be an understatement. However, he did manage to find a silver lining, acknowledging that it could help ease his conversations with white people in America.
Especially in this current time frame, in this now moment, I believe that as Americans, we need to have this conversation about who we are and how we got here.
Number 16, Neil Patrick Harris reacts to his ancestors' tragic fate.
Do you have any idea what they are accusing your ancestor Gertrude of?
Making some delicious meal?
Long before the Salem witch trials in the late 17th century, individuals across Europe, especially women, faced accusations of witchcraft. One of such women was Neil Patrick Harris's 12th great-grandmother, Gertrude Stuhl. Stuhl was accused of enchanting her neighbors' livestock to kill them, and she was placed on trial for her life.
She is supposed to have bewitched the pigs and cows of her neighbors so that they died. The cattle had foam on their necks, one cow lost her hooves, and the pigs had breathed like a bellows.
Sadly, the proceedings ended with Stuhl being found guilty of practicing witchcraft and sentenced to death. You'd think this tragic family history would provoke a somber reaction, but instead Harris seemed oddly thrilled by the idea of his ancestor being burned at the stake. Even more unsettling, he drew a connection between Stuhl's accusation of black magic to his own love of magic.
But I would like to think that she really was a witch, and she had magical powers. We lost one for the cause, but the witchcraft lives on.
Number 15, Larry David's secretive mother. It can be astounding how little one knows about their own family history. For comedian Larry David, this truth hit hard when he went on the show hoping to learn more about his mother, Rose, who he admits was notoriously secretive.
You know, she was older than my father.
Right.
I never knew that until she died.
Oh, okay. So there you go.
It's always puzzled me how little I knew.
As the researchers sifted through historical records, they unearthed a document showing that his grandmother had a daughter named Regina. But David was puzzled. He had never had an Aunt Regina. Did she die, change her name, or simply vanish?
Wow, so you think we made a mistake?
No, I don't think you made a mistake. I think she must have left somebody there, or maybe she died.
Well, no. Turns out David's mother, Rose, was actually born Regina, a fact he was completely unaware of. Whatever reason she had for the name change, Rose took it to her grave, leaving her son utterly confused.
Did you know your mother was born in Europe?
No, I did not. You see, this is why
She had secrets.
Yeah, secrets, yeah.
Number 14, a hidden relationship in Sierra's ancestry.
Nathan, no, don't go there.
Nathan said, I'm going there.
Yeah, he went there, and his wife went somewhere else.
In the season 10 premiere, Sierra stumbled upon a family secret involving her great-great-grandmother, Emily Redding. The singer's DNA test showed a biological connection to Redding and her son, Willie Head, but not to Willie's supposed father, Nathan. To add to the surprise, the results also linked Sierra to several other people, all of whom were white.
I think about like my grandfather's hair.
Oh, yeah?
You know.
He had good hair?
Pretty. As he got older, it got a little more, a little more coarse. But I look at some of his, the photos that I did get to see from when he was younger with my grandma, and it was fine.
Further investigation revealed Willie's actual father, a white man named Walker Lafayette Head. Apparently, Walker and Nathan lived near each other around the time Willie was conceived.
Walker and Nathan grew up in the same house together.
Wow.
And at some point, when both men were about 40, Walker slept with Nathan's wife.
Whether Walker and Redding's relationship was consensual is unknown, but Sierra seemed to believe it was. However, considering the societal dynamics back then, that might not have been very likely.
I'd definitely like to believe there was some connectivity that happened.
People fall in love, you can't control it. Desire is colorblind.
Oh yeah, love is love.
Number 13, Sunny Hostin's Spanish roots.
I'm still sort of shocked about the depth of the ties, I guess.
What do you think? All these white people just came up out of the ground? They had to come from somewhere.
TV host Sunny Hostin was born in 1968 to a Puerto Rican mother and an African-American father, so she always believed her heritage was half Puerto Rican. However, when she appeared on Finding Your Roots in February 2024, she got an unexpected surprise. Hostin learned she was only 7% indigenous Puerto Rican and that she descended from a Spanish merchant who, it turns out, most likely participated in the slave trade.
Wow. I'm a little bit in shock. I just always thought of myself as Puerto Rican, you know, half Puerto Rican. I didn't think I was, my family was originally from Spain and slaveholders.
This revelation contrasted with her political beliefs, leaving her feeling a mix of shock and disappointment. Despite this, she admitted that the discovery enriched her understanding of her family's history, even though it didn't necessarily change her perspective.
I guess it's a fact of life that this is how some people made their living, on the backs of others.
Number 12, LL Cool J's biological grandparents. Getting told by your parents that you're adopted can be earth-shattering for anyone. Now imagine making such a discovery years after they've passed away, on a TV show no less. That's exactly what happened to rapper LL Cool J and his mother, Andrea Griffith, on Finding Your Roots.
But they had their reasons for not telling me. Finding out when I'm my age now, I can understand it. I can put everything in perspective.
After his parents split up in his childhood, LL was raised by his maternal grandparents, who supported his musical ambitions. But one secret they hid was that his mother was not their biological child.
There was something odd about this birth certificate. Notice that there are no parents listed. Notice also that it was made out in 1947, which is over a year after your mother was born.
Wow.
Even Griffith didn't know this, only learning about it through the show. The news was so sensitive that host Henry Louis Gates Jr. had to first call LL privately, away from the cameras, to break it to him.
Well, some people would have wanted to keep this information private, but you and your mom wanted to learn more.
Yeah.
Why?
I need to know this. I mean, my mother deserves it.
Number 11, Ben Affleck controversy.
It's always been a kind of a blank canvas to me. And so I'm very excited to sort of fill in the blanks.
Discovering that one's ancestors owned slaves can be embarrassing for some people. It was this sense of shame that pushed actor Ben Affleck to a drastic point.
It makes it feel less academic and more personal, and I'm very surprised by this.
Affleck appeared on the show in 2014, where he learned that his maternal ancestor Benjamin Cole was a slave owner in Georgia. The revelation unsettled him so much that he went to great lengths to keep it hidden. Affleck successfully lobbied Henry Louis Gates Jr. and the show's producers to omit this information from the aired episode. However, the infamous Sony Pictures hack that year unearthed emails that revealed Affleck's efforts to suppress the truth. The ensuing controversy led to the show being temporarily suspended, although it returned after Affleck apologized for his actions.
We tend to separate ourselves from these things by going like, you know, oh, well, it's just dry history and it's all over now. And this shows us that there's still a living aspect to history, like a personal connection.
Number 10, Laura Linney's felonious ancestors.
Want to guess what?
I want to know what did
William
he do?
did.
What did he do? What did he do?
You might be familiar with the British practice of sending convicts to Australia during the 18th and 19th centuries. But did you know that before Australia, the primary destination for British prisoners was actually America?
Transportation of convicts to the American colonies in the 18th century was a way for England to rid the country of criminals without killing them.
If this fact didn't come as a surprise to you, it definitely did for award-winning actress Laura Linney. When she appeared on the show in 2019, Linney discovered that her fifth great-grandfather, William Linney, had been convicted in England of receiving stolen goods and was transported to Virginia in 1768.
Well knowing them to have been stolen, the justice said, "Mr. Linney, you hear what the lad has said. Have you anything to say?" Linney said, "No, I had the goods."
Probably not the most flattering information to learn about one's ancestors, but Linney took it in stride with a hearty laugh.
That is the passenger list from the ship on which your ancestors sailed from 1768.
Holy mackerel. Felons transported from London to Virginia by the Neptune.
Number 9, Soledad O'Brien's ancestor falls on hard times. Laura Linney was not the only celebrity to uncover their ancestors' criminal background.
I didn't realize on the Whiteman side, which, by the way, nobody talks about, and now I know why, because they also ran things like scams.
In another episode, veteran broadcast journalist Soledad O'Brien was also hit with a mortifying revelation about her third great-grandmother, Lilias Whiteman. Host Henry Louis Gates Jr. presented O'Brien with a prisoner register from 19th century Scotland, revealing that a 41-year-old Whiteman had been arrested for robbery alongside a group of teenage boys.
And in receipt of said theft. So she was handling stolen goods.
It soon became clear that Whiteman might have been leading a gang of young thieves in Edinburgh, Scotland. This theory seemed to embarrass O'Brien initially, but when they dug deeper into the actual reason why Whiteman resorted to crime, her perspective changed.
So her husband died at age 39.
Yeah, the death of her husband, the breadwinner, was probably what pushed Lilias and William into the life of petty larceny.
That's really sad.
They were stealing to survive.
Number 8, not Julia Roberts. The name Julia Roberts is instantly recognizable to millions around the world. But what if we told you it's actually not her biological name?
Is my head on straight still? Am I facing you?
The Oscar-winning actress derived her surname from Willis Roberts, her supposed great-great-grandfather. However, genealogical research uncovered a discrepancy. Julia's great-grandfather, John, was born more than a decade after Willis passed away. This meant that the actress couldn't be biologically related to Willis Roberts.
We scoured Douglas County looking for any record that named John's father, and we found absolutely nothing.
Through DNA analysis, the show eventually traced her ancestry to a man named Henry MacDonald Mitchell Jr., a married man who lived only a few miles away from Willis's wife, Rhoda.
A few short miles, it would seem.
And get this. According to the same census, Henry's widowed mother, Elizabeth Mitchell, lived just 4 households from Rhoda.
Despite the biological inaccuracy, we still think Julia Roberts has a much better ring to it than Julia Mitchell. Number 7, Issa Rae's free ancestors.
If they were named, would they be free?
The Charbonnets were free.
How did they get away with that?
During the era of slavery, people who were enslaved were typically omitted from census records. However, during her appearance on Finding Your Roots in 2021, actress and producer Issa Rae discovered documents that identified her third great-grandfather, Dawson Charbonnet, by name. This was due to the fact that Charbonnet's mother, Milite, had been granted freedom by her owner, who also happened to be a black man.
So you just blew my mind even more.
Mm-hmm.
So they were owned by
Another black person. Slavery was a very complicated institution.
Yes, it was.
Additionally, Rae learned that Charbonnet's father was a white man who had his own family, but engaged in a clandestine relationship with Milite. If this all felt like a convoluted television B-plot, then you're not alone. Even Rae shared the same sentiment.
This is so... It's like you just took me through a soap opera, like a slave soap opera. Whew, wow. That is some twisted family history.
Number 6, Gayle King's European ancestry.
I knew her father was white, that her mother was black, but we were not to talk about it, and she never wanted to talk about it.
Gayle King's family harbored a long-held secret concerning her maternal grandmother, Emma Brown. It was revealed that Brown was the product of a white father and a black mother, a fact seemingly concealed out of shame, at least according to King.
What was his ethnicity?
White man.
Just white man?
White man.
Not from Germany, England, Ireland?
No,
nothing.
white man.
White man, okay.
White man, and do not ask her about her father.
The genealogists at Finding Your Roots were able to trace King's ancestry back to Robert Elliott Copes, a white man from South Carolina, and Emma Brown's grandfather. This discovery unveiled King's European ancestry, which comprises over 30% of her genetic makeup. However, when the results of this DNA analysis were revealed to her at the end of the episode, King didn't seem to be very pleased with them.
You are 1/3 white.
Take that back.
Number 5, Angela Davis descended from white settlers. You'd be shocked to learn what some of your ancestors were up to. That probably should be the tagline for Finding Your Roots. In 2023, the show delivered yet another jaw-dropping revelation, this time to political activist Angela Davis.
Any idea what you're looking at? That is a list of the passengers on the Mayflower.
No, I can't believe this. No, my ancestors did not come here on the Mayflower.
Throughout her lengthy career, Davis gained a fierce reputation for her unwavering advocacy for civil rights, as well as her relentless fight against structural racism. Hence, she was taken aback to learn that her ancestors were the complete opposite.
Oof. That's a little bit too much to deal with right now.
Davis was revealed to be a direct descendant of William Brewster, one of the 102 settlers who journeyed to the colonies on the Mayflower. Just goes to show that despite sharing bloodlines, people can still differ greatly from their ancestors.
Did you ever in your wildest dreams think that you may have descended from people who laid
Never.
the foundation
Never.
for this country?
Never. Never.
Number 4, George R.R. Martin's grandmother's affair. When George R.R. Martin appeared on Finding Your Roots in 2019, he uncovered a surprising family tale reminiscent of the sordid ones in his epic fantasy books.
Spent much of his childhood in the home of his beloved grandmother, Grace Martin. But George knew almost nothing about his grandfather, Grace's husband, Louis Martin.
Martin had always believed that his Italian paternal grandfather Louis had abandoned his grandmother Grace for a younger woman. However, that notion was shattered when the show's team revealed the results of Martin's DNA test.
What's missing from that chart?
The Italians.
The Italians. There's no Italian.
Okay, that's shocking.
Martin's DNA showed a quarter Ashkenazi Jewish ancestry, suggesting his true grandfather was Jewish. It was quickly surmised that it was Grace who likely cheated on Louis, which eventually pushed him away.
I've often thought of writing a book about, that house. It was.
Yeah.
I haven't even told half the stories yet of some of the people who lived there at various points.
That book just got more complicated.
Oh, we fully expect the next book to be chaotic. Number 3, the identity of Viola Davis's great-grandfather. Oscar-winning actress Viola Davis came on Finding Your Roots expecting to learn more about her ancestry, but she probably wasn't ready for the messy familial secrets she would uncover.
Did your mom ever talk about this?
Never.
Isn't that interesting? That silence?
Silence is always interesting to me.
Davis learned that her grandfather, Henry Logan, had a mysterious lineage. In official documents, 2 different men had been listed as his father, Gable Logan on his Social Security application and John Young on his obituary. Although Henry's mother, Corinne, was married to Gable, historical records showed that after he came back from World War I, Gable never returned to live with Corinne. Through DNA analysis and census data, researchers inferred that Corinne likely had an affair with her neighbor John Young, resulted in the birth of Davis's grandfather.
It's the mess of relationships and the mess of, love, sex. It's truth.
Number 2, Catherine Hahn's ancestors moved from Germany to America. Our forefathers often relocated to different countries for various reasons: economic prospects, fleeing conflict, or in the case of Catherine Hahn's ancestor, eloping with their lover at the expense of family ties.
That is so complicated.
Well, one thing you should know that you don't have to worry about in the guilt chart.
No guilt, just like, what?
In 1853, Hahn's third great-grandfather, Wilhelm Lunenschloss, was living in Germany with his wife and 6 children. However, by 1860, Wilhelm had moved to Wisconsin, now married to a different woman named Eliza. The Finding Your Roots team dug deeper into this significant change.
On the right, you could see the name of the man who lived at Ehrenstrasse 48, just a few doors down. Could you read his surname?
Anton Ternus.
And whose surname was Ternus?
Hers.
Through a German city directory from 1854, they found that Eliza was the daughter of Wilhelm's neighbour. This suggests that Wilhelm met Eliza there in Germany, then abandoned his family to start a new one with her in America.
The fact that that had to happen for this to happen
You
is...
are the product of the scandal.
I know.
You are the end result.
Isn't that nuts?
Number 1, Niecy Nash learns who her grandfather is. Hollywood actress Niecy Nash was in for a rude shock when she appeared on the 9th season of Finding Your Roots. Turns out that the man Nash had always believed to be her paternal grandfather actually wasn't.
I was in a state of shock. I think I said what now? What exactly does that mean? And then I realized what you were saying.
Naturally, this was an incredibly surprising revelation for the actress, who now faced the challenging task of breaking this news to her father. Researchers on the show used Nash's DNA, along with that of a second cousin, to uncover the identity of her biological grandfather, a man named Frank Jackson.
What's it like to see this?
So many things are going on in my mind right now. I'm like, I wonder if my father ever met him or if he ever knew him in his life.
So how did this discrepancy occur? Well, that's the complicated part. Jackson actually lived very close to Nash's grandmother in St. Louis, so it's believed the two had an affair, which ultimately produced Nash's father.
That's where Mr. Jackson
So
lived.
Mr. Jackson came round to the house a time or two while she was already married to Arthur.
Well, we don't know if he came to the house or she came to his house.
But they met on up.
Would you ever want to dig into your ancestry? What would you hope to find?
Well, that door just opened.
Here it is.
Yeah.
Learning about the trials, tribulations, triumphs, and struggles your ancestors went through must bring up so many complex emotions. That is why we were able to compile a list of the 10 most emotional moments on Finding Your Roots. Let's take a look.
I feel fortunate. I feel found. This book right here has changed my life.
Welcome to MsMojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the most heart-wrenching discoveries made on this genealogy docuseries that left the celebrity subjects visibly moved.
And I promised myself I wouldn't cry. But it's hard not to.
Number 10, Pamela Adlon. Actress Pamela Adlon went on Finding Your Roots in 2022 to validate a long-held rumour in her family that her mother was the product of an extramarital affair.
It's very hard, the English side, because there are things you don't do.
Yes.
If they have gone to their graves without talking about it, it's not anybody's business.
Right.
And that's frustrating for me.
Through an arduous research process, the show ultimately confirmed that the rumour was indeed right. Adlon discovered that her actual grandfather was not the man she had known all her life. Instead, it was someone else, named Joseph Wolfew. Further investigation revealed that Wolfew had another daughter named Gloria, who shared a 25% DNA match with Adlon's mother, making them half-sisters.
Oh my God, this is crazy.
Your mother's got a sister.
Remarkably, Gloria was found to still be alive and well. Adlon was overwhelmed by this revelation and could not contain her excitement to share the news with her mother.
What's your mom going to say when she sees that picture?
Freak out. Oh, I can't wait. I just can't. Yes. This is awesome.
Number 9, Claire Danes. Claire Danes was named after her paternal grandmother when she was born. But beyond that, she didn't know much about the other Claire Danes.
I wonder about her a lot. I have a portrait of her that my parents loaned me. and I stare at it all the time, you know. Who were you?
On a 2023 episode of Finding Your Roots, Danes discovered that she and her grandmother shared so much in common. It turned out that her grandmother, like herself, was deeply involved in theatre, directing local productions and even writing her master's thesis on William Shakespeare.
What's it like for you to see that?
Profound. That's really, really meaningful. It just is.
This connection was particularly poignant for Danes, who had her breakthrough role in the 1996 film adaptation of Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. After years of wondering about her grandmother's life, learning about their shared passion was enough to bring Danes to tears.
It's kind of amazing. Sorry, it's very provocative, all this.
It is.
Yeah, it's like the most vital stuff, right?
Oh, it is. And it's right there in your family tree. It's just remarkable.
It really is. It really is.
Number 8, Tamira Mowry.
I wonder what she did to escape her current situation.
Right. Mm-hmm.
What were her thoughts of hope?
What's her flights of fancy?
Yes.
The horrors of slavery will forever be agonizing regardless of how many times they are recounted. For actress Tamira Mowry, it was particularly distressing to find out about the harrowing ordeal suffered by her third great-grandmother, Margaret Roll, who was born into slavery in the Bahamas. At a mere 9 years of age, Roll was already listed in an official document as a field laborer, a reality that was incomprehensible to Mowry.
I know my kids. You want to protect them, you want them to keep that innocence.
Yeah.
But for Margaret,
the actress was further overcome with emotion as she contemplated the unimaginable journey her ancestor was left to endure to attain freedom following the abolition of slavery.
And she was old enough to be conscious of.
That's yes.
I was
this, and now
I'm
there's
that.
this.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm feeling right now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, just that moment of...
Number 7, Sterling K. Brown.
Wow. Oh my goodness. My family's going to flip.
Although African Americans trace their origins to individuals forcibly brought from Africa, it is rare to find people who were directly born on the continent in their family lineage. This is because by the time African Americans were first identified by name in the 1870 federal census, most of those born in Africa had already passed away. One of such rare cases occurred with actor Sterling K. Brown.
Birthplace of father, Africa. Birthplace of mother, Africa.
On Finding Your Roots, Brown discovered that his 5th great-grandparents were among the few native-born Africans who were still alive when the census took place. While their exact country of birth was not specified on the document, the revelation still had a profound impact on Brown.
When you hear like your friends talk about their German ancestors and their Irish ancestors and Italian ancestors, like I feel like I'm on the cusp of like, I can join in that conversation.
Number 6, Regina King.
You know, I couldn't imagine that 6-year-old being alone.
Right.
And, you know, seeing it like this and seeing it written.
Yeah.
Just kind of hits differently.
The 3rd great-grandfather of actress and director Regina King was a man named Bob Kane, who was born into slavery. At a very young age, Kane was treated like a piece of property, passed among the family members who enslaved him. Reflecting on such a harsh reality, compared with her own life at the same age, brought King to tears.
At the age of 6, I was safe.
Her sorrow eventually turned to joy when she learned that after slavery ended and voting rights were granted to formerly enslaved people, Kane immediately registered to vote. Despite being unable to read or write at the time, Kane was determined to exercise this fundamental right, which filled King with immense happiness.
He understood the importance of that and what that meant.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, even though he couldn't read and he couldn't write, he could feel.
Number 5, Scarlett Johansson.
It's crazy to imagine that Saul would be on the other side selling bananas
Oh, yeah.
on Ludlow Street.
Yep.
And how different it would be being in America at that time. The fate of one brother versus the other.
Scarlett Johansson's roots trace back to Poland and Russia, with her maternal ancestors migrating to New York City in the early 20th century. Although Johansson had prior knowledge of this ancestry, it was on Finding Your Roots that she uncovered the fate of her relatives who remained in Europe. Her maternal great-grandfather, Saul Schlamberg, had a brother named Moshek, whom he left behind in Grudziądz, Poland.
Moshek was about 60 years old at the time. He and his wife had 10 children.
Through a document retrieved from the Yad Vashem Holocaust Museum in Israel, Johansson discovered that Moshek and some of his children lost their lives in the Warsaw Ghetto. This revelation not only made her cry, but it admittedly also helped her to consider her heritage in a new way.
It makes me feel more deeply connected to that side of myself, that side of my family. I didn't expect that.
Number 4, LeVar Burton. Roots actor LeVar Burton indeed found out more about his roots when he appeared on the show in 2024.
Can't even explain how it feels to get this information. It's like there have been pieces of me that have been missing. They've always been out there somewhere.
For 23 years, Burton hosted the educational series Reading Rainbow on PBS, becoming an advocate for children's literacy. On Finding Your Roots, Burton discovered that his passion for education, which he once attributed solely to his mother, may have also come from the ancestors of his father, from whom he had been estranged for decades.
So you just met your great-grandfather?
Pearl.
Yeah, Pearl B. Burton. And he and your grandfather worked in education.
Both school superintendents.
Both father and son school superintendents.
One for grammar school and another for the other for junior high school.
How's that make you feel?
It fills me with great pride that I have inherited this mantle of educator.
Yeah.
Really, honestly.
A 1940 Arkansas consensus document revealed that both his grandfather, Aaron C. Burton, and his great-grandfather, Pearl B. Burton, served as school superintendents. This struck Burton profoundly, as he realized how deeply his family's legacy had influenced his own advocacy, despite not being aware of it initially.
You just opened a door, and the whole room was on the other side of the wall, you know?
No kidding. My reality has shifted.
Yeah, because you thought all of these attributes you got from your mom.
From my mom.
Yeah.
That's deep.
Records show that LeVar's great-grandfather, Pearl, spent almost his entire adult life working in schools. He was even the principal and co-founder of a public school for African-American children in Osceola, Arkansas, an institution that he helped open at a time when roughly 20% of his state's black population was illiterate.
Number 3, David Duchovny. The ancestors of actor David Duchovny faced an arduous journey from their homeland before establishing their roots in the US. Upon learning that his great-grandfather Moshe was born in Russia, Duchovny was immediately brought to tears.
I know what that affects me. You've come a long way. It just makes me so sad that I didn't get to meet him, really. I know that my dad loved him. My dad used to tell me he had this lingering guilt because like the day or a few days before my grandfather died, he had called my father, and my father was busy, you know, at home. He had this baby, me, and he had my brother who was 4. And he said, I can't talk to him.
Right.
And he hung up, and that was the last time.
Oh, no, that's hard.
And I kind of feel that way. It's like, oh, you know, I missed it. You know, we missed one another on this plane of existence, right?
Yeah.
But here he is.
He further discovered that Moshe and his family were part of about 1 million Jews who left Russia to escape anti-Semitic violence. However, even after moving to Jaffa in present-day Israel, the discrimination continued, and they were eventually deported to Egypt.
Newspaper articles from the time indicate that many of Yafa's Jews were robbed of all their possessions, meaning that David's ancestors would have arrived in Egypt with nothing. Even so, they somehow managed to pick up the pieces and move forward, giving a surprising end to this story. Less than 2 years later, Moshe and his father Abraham traveled to Greece, where they boarded a ship bound for the United States.
Moshe and his father ultimately sailed to the United States and settled in New York. Their resilience in seeking a better home and securing a stable future for their descendants deeply touched Duchovny and left him with a sense of pride.
They ran and they ran and they got somewhere. You know, they didn't give up.
Number 2, Tracy Morgan. Before the Civil War, only a small fraction of black people living in America were not enslaved. One of them was Wiley Wharton, who happens to be the 3rd great-grandfather of comedian Tracy Morgan.
Did you ever imagine that somebody in your family line was free before the Civil War, before the Emancipation Proclamation?
Good for you, Grandpa.
This fact came to light because Wharton was listed by name in the 1860 census. For Morgan, the revelation that his ancestor didn't have to endure being enslaved brought him a mixed feeling of relief and intense emotion.
I'm free when I'm on stage. I feel free. When I'm on stage doing my comedy, I feel free. I know it came from you.
Though Wiley was free, his family was not. We believe that his wife, Judy, Tracy's 3rd great-grandmother, was enslaved by a white man named James Medley.
However, although Wharton was free, his wife Judy and their children were still in slavery. Fast forward a decade after the practice had been abolished, records indicate that Wharton, Judy and their children all remained together and learned to read and write.
All the children stayed with them?
Yeah, you all stayed with them. The Wharton family stayed together through slavery and freedom and Reconstruction.
You know, I think about my life. I think about not the bad things, but all the great things that have come to me. I feel fortunate. I feel found. This book right here has changed my life.
Number 1, Pharrell Williams.
I don't want to cry, and I'm trying not to be angry.
You're not a machine. This is horrendous. What else can you feel? It's horrible.
It's intense, sir. It's intense.
Pharrell's ancestors likely suffered more than he can even imagine. In her interview, Jane recalled minute details about their daily lives on a cotton plantation, revealing the degradation they endured every day.
Few African Americans have gotten the opportunity to trace their enslaved ancestors, and even fewer are lucky enough to read their first-hand testimonies. In a 2021 episode of Finding Your Roots, acclaimed musician Pharrell Williams was introduced to his great-great-great-aunt, Jane Arrington. Arrington was a participant in the Slave Narratives Project in the 1930s and provided a detailed account of her years spent living as an enslaved person.
I was born on the plantation near Tar River. My mother was named Louisa May, and my father was named Louis May. My mother had 6 children, 4 boys and 2 girls. The boys were Richard, Pharaoh, Caesar, and Finner. The girls, Rose and Jane. Jane, that's me.
Through her words, Williams gained insight into her harrowing experiences and was able to reflect on the hardship that she and many others like her were forced to endure. He also discovered that Arrington's brother, Fenner Williams, his great-great-grandfather, spent the first decade of his life enslaved.
It puts a very vivid, intense context behind what it means to be African American. And I thank God that I got to hear it. But I'm so sorry they went through this.
Oh, nobody should have gone through this.
It's a lot, man.
Oh.
I have to say I'm forever changed.
What other harrowing Finding Your Roots revelations did we miss?
It fills me with great pride that I have inherited this mantle of educator.
Yeah.
Really, honestly.
You come from educators on both sides.
That's very cool. I'm very proud of that.
I can't imagine what it must be like to find out such jaw-dropping information about your ancestors. Do you have any information about your family history? Any surprises? Interesting connections? Juicy secrets? As always, thank you for joining me on this informative journey through the MsMojo archives. See ya.